Okay, so first thing, during the morning session, do you have any question or anything not clear? Okay, so first thing, during the morning session. Okay, okay, okay. If everything clear, first thing I'm going to brief talk about. Sorry, briefing talk about this labs. So I just did a few labs during the break, this afternoon break. So let me tell you what's happening here. So I'm here. Okay, first thing I log into the VPN, I log into one of this student desktop. Like I said, this is normally two-person controlling two desktop. But if you want to do it by yourself, you just need to follow the lab menu and you do both job. Okay, not a big deal. Okay, so first thing I log into my student desktop. So I just did a few labs. So after I log into this one, the first thing is I have a folder sorry, called the VCP lab folder. You double click and let's compare it with lab menu. So if you get a chance to go through some lab menu topics, you will find this lab menu is almost, I can say 100% accurate lab menu. That means even the click, where you should click, double click, right click, left click, where you should click, everything is written here. Okay, I give you an example so you will understand that. Okay, for example, there's some mistake people will make from here. Is that, okay, if we follow the lab, go to the location of the installation software, which is that folder, double click autorun.exe, which I'm going to double click autorun. This is exe, it's application, okay? I will double click. And next one said, in the left panel, select vSphere client under VMware, under VMware vCenter desktop client. Okay, so what's that mean? Okay, most of the students just quickly go through that element. So okay, double click this and go here, click install. So if we go back to the lab menu, the lab menu will say select vSphere client. Okay, a lot of students just quickly go through the lab menu and click install here. Actually, they say on the left hand side and left window, and just click that vSphere client. After that, you click install, and you just follow the lab menu. So why I mentioned that is that each of these line provide you a very detailed configuration steps. So if you jump between one and another, or if you didn't read it carefully, you will make some small mistakes there. Okay. So that's why I say this is almost 100% accurate. If you follow them line by line, word by word, you shouldn't have any issue with these labs. Okay. Back to here. So what is lab one doing? Lab one is ask us to install this vSphere client, which you follow the lab menu, you go click install. So after you install it, you have this icon, which is called the vSphere client. Sorry, I cannot zoom in because I tried. They don't allow me to do that. So this is after you install that software. This is your vSphere client. On top, you can put your ESXi host server name, IP address, or the domain name. So I'm going to log in with root MEI lab 123. So what's happening on this moment is we log into the student desktop and we open the window, which is called the vSphere client. And we put that IP address or domain name, which is point to my ESXi01. After that, I put the username, root, and the password. And I get this window because at this moment, I don't add any license. So they say your evaluation license will be expired in 59 days. 60 days is the trial version. Click OK. And say, like I said, I couldn't find the button to make it bigger. So, and for lab one, they also ask you to go maybe click summary to check what's the memory, what's the hard drive, all the parameters. And you can put some configuration, DNS or host name or NTP server here. And plus they ask you to build one virtual machine. So if you follow the.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Go ahead.
Sir, this vSphere client, is it, given with our, zip file, or do we have to download it from?
Oh, it's here. If you follow lab menu, lab menu asks you go to this folder called VCP lab, double click, and under this VMware VM setup, and under that you have auto run. Let me double check the lab menu. So if you follow the lab menu, they say install vSphere client. And remember, this client is not installed on your local desktop, it's installed on the remote side. Okay, so if you follow auto run, blah, 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 you will have it. Back to diagram, just make sure the concept is clear.
Sorry, Dajan, the installation of ESXi were already done on the one computer, yes? Do we have an instruction for installing the ESXi by itself on the?
Good question. I will answer that, okay? I will answer that question. First question back to here is, let me make it clear again. So we are here. Remember, from your laptop to the student desktop, what do you need? You have a VPN and remote desktop. That's all. After you log in here, you will have to install vSphere client. Sorry, VMware client. And from this software, you need to point to one of your ESXi. Okay. Second student will do the same thing. Point to this ESXi. Okay, so that's first question. Second question comes at ESXi already installed. Can I try to install it by myself? Right? That's the second question comes. From this lab, we already have this part. What's this part for is this part has a server or it's a PC. On top, we already installed ESXi for you. So that's why your task is just go log in and build some virtual machine on top. And the question said, can we try to install this ESXi? Answer is yes or no, depends on. During our lab menu, there's no lab say you can install this during the lab, but I give you a way to try this, okay? So back to your laptop. This is your Windows 10 or Mac. Okay, on top you install workstation, VMware workstation, okay? So on top, you can do this way. You can build a virtual machine. You can build a virtual machine and you can go download ESXi as a virtual disk, like this virtual DVD, or normally they start with ISO, ending with ISO. Okay, you can download this from VMware website and you can insert this virtual disk to that virtual machine. So after that, you power on, this virtual machine will start install the ESXi. And then after you finish install, from this monitor, inside this VM, they have the monitor, and you will see that yellow page. Okay, like half yellow. Okay, well, that's okay. So like I said, if you want to try this way, this is a good way to try it. Okay, build one virtual machine on your local and try to install ESXi inside this virtual machine. So let's go further here. You may say, if I did that, if I already built a virtual machine, and if I put ESXi, I install ESXi. So you say, my next question will be, can I build another virtual machine inside? The answer is yes, you can. Okay, you can build a virtual machine inside the ESXi, which is another virtual machine, which is on top of your host. Okay, so you may say, okay, so in that case, can I do this way? Inside ESXi, can I build another virtual machine? And can I install another ESXi? And can I build another virtual machine inside? The answer is yes, you can do that. So that's become a multi-layer virtual, multi-virtual layer there. Okay, so it's possible. If you want to play with that, you can. So why I'm saying that is, okay, yeah, because one student asked a question, but I just go deeper. So give you some background here. From this topology, it looks like this are all physical machine, right? From user level, this all physical machine. So on top, you may put the Windows, you may put ESXi, you may put something special. So just remember, this is just for one group. We have 15 of this kind of the groups, right? We have 15 of them. So if this are all physical machine, I cannot manage them. So from my side, if I'm a system manager, all these are virtual machine. Okay, all these are virtual machine. So that's back to the question now is for this ESXi. For you, it looks like on the bottom is ESXi and you build a virtual machine on top from the user perspective. But from my side, what I see is first thing I have a big virtual machine, right? This is ESXi. So on top, I have a lot of virtual machines. So one of these virtual machine is your ESXi. And what you did a virtual machine inside this ESXi. And because from your perspective, this is a physical server, but from my perspective, this is my physical server. Okay, so actually for me, your virtual machine is 2 layers away from my physical layer. Right, so I have one virtual layer, and you add a virtual layer, and you have your virtual machine. Okay. So this is a background of this topology. Okay, so hopefully I answered that question, said how to try this. Okay, you can try it from your home.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem. Okay, so if you have a little bit powerful, desktop or laptop, means you have some extra memory, you can actually load the entire lab environment to your laptop. Right? But we are talking about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 virtual machine, and plus you need to build a few virtual machine inside. So if you have a little bit powerful machine, you can play with that. Okay. So back to here. So what we did, and okay, back to here. I have lots of things open. Yeah. So this is your vSphere client software. So normally open like this way. And you can check your inventory, CPU, RAM. So I just finished build a virtual machine here. So how to build a virtual machine? You can go click new virtual machine and give some name. If you follow lab manual, they say put your name, put a certain number here. Let's put test. First thing they ask you where you want to save this operating system. You say no option, only one option left. This guy, go click. I ask you which hardware version you want to use. During our lab, we say 10 because they have another lab is going to upgrade from 10 to 11. Go next. They will ask you, what is your operating system? You have Windows, you have Linux, you have Red Hat, CentOS, and other. You can have Apple, you can have Sun, you can have some special one. And oh, here, see, under the other, you can have your VMware ESXi. So this is what's happening. You build a virtual machine, and you want to install ESXi layer inside the virtual machine. You can pick up one of these options. Okay, so for us, we have Windows, and you see they have MS-DOS if you really want to try it. Okay. And you may ask, you may wonder, say, why the VM care what I use in here, right? So normally VM build a virtual machine is CPU, RAM, hard drive, that's all. Why the VM ask me, say, what is operating system you are going to use? It's because if you pick up certain, this, for example, 32-bit, they may say, no, RAM only can use 4 gig, not over 4 gig. If you pick up this Windows Server, they will by default give you the E1000 network card because they say, okay, this operating system knows this driver for network card. And if you pick up some different operating system, they give you the best combination configuration for you. So it's kind of give you some guidance about this configuration. So for us, we go 2008, 2003 64-bit. Next. So next question is, what is your CPU configuration? They have two numbers you can play. They say number of the virtual socket and the number of core per virtual socket. Here we have two numbers. The one is the socket and the next one is cores per socket. So what's happening here is when you buy a laptop, they come with one CPU. So there's no doubt you can have two. So you cannot have two. So only one CPU for you. What you care is you care cores. Right? If you buy i3, this one may come with 2 cores. You buy i5, they come with 4. You buy i7, they come with 8 cores. Something like that. Or you buy i9. You care about cores. But for the server, normally they have a multiple CPU inside. Let's say they have 2 CPU inside. So each CPU will have some cores. So we'll multiply everything together. You get the total of the cores. So same thing to the virtual machine. And if you say I'm running Windows XP, and you cannot have 2 CPU inside the Windows XP, I believe, because they don't support multi-socket. You can only have one socket. Let's say you can only have one socket with 8 cores. But if you have a Windows server, you can have 2 CPU socket and each socket can put 4 cores here. Okay, so this is just a combination. But finally, when you multiply these two numbers together, that's the total resource you get for your virtual machine. You may say, why? In that case, why we care the socket? You can just put enough core to the one CPU, right? You say, if I need 16 core, I put 16 core here. Why I put 2 CPU with each one 8 cores? It's because some of these operating systems support hot plug. Hot plug means when the Windows or when the server is running, you can hot plug or unplug the CPU. When you don't need to shut down the system to plug and unplug CPU. They call hot swap. And they also support hot swap RAM and hard drive. So they also support CPU. That means if you have a multiple socket, you can easily hot swap this CPU, but you need to have a operating system support it. Okay, so by default, we have one CPU core. So see, they have a total number of the cores, means these two numbers, you multiply them together, that's the total you have. Memory, by default, they have 4, so if you follow lab manual, they say lower to 1 gig. So we lower to 1 gig. For the network, you can have different adapter here, right? That's what we mentioned. E1000 is the most popular Intel brand network card. So pick one E1000. And here you have the network. By default, you have one name called VM network. And later you may have VM production, vMotion. What's that? This part. Okay, because now we log into ESXi. So we build one virtual machine. And by default, I have a NIC interface. And by default, this NIC interface is connect to this management network. That's why we saw this VM management network. So later, you don't want your user data mixed with your management data. So you will move this VM interface to production network. Okay, you will build a different name, different network with different name. And you may try to use VLAN to isolate the traffic. Okay, so that's here. By default, this connect to the management network. We have only one option here. And you go next, they ask you, what is your hard drive controller? You say by default, it's LSI. Next. And they will say, do you want to create a new hard drive or you want to use the existing virtual disk? You say new. What mean use existing virtual disk means if you have some pen drive load with a VMDK file, you can now load it. That will be your C drive or D drive. But for us, we have a brand new, right? So that's why I say create a new virtual disk. On top, they say, what is the hard drive size? If you follow line manual, they say 11 gig. And here is the most important part. Say disk provisioning, which one you want? You say, I want SIM provision. So why I say this is important is because I believe for each ESXi, I put, let's say I put 20 GB hard drive. So if you build your first VM, 11 GB, and you need to build the second one with 11 GB. And if you don't use SIM provision, 20 GB will be not enough for 2 VM. Okay, because I saw some student long time ago put SIG provision by default. Click SIG provision. So
Okay,
they
so first thing,
minus
during the
11
morning
GB.
session, do you have any?
Now it's only 9 GB left.
Okay, so,
And when you start building your second VM,
okay,
they
so,
will pop up a warning saying, no, we don't have
okay,
enough
so,
space for you to build your second
okay,
VM.
so first thing, during the morning session,
Okay,
do
so
you have
make
any?
sure you go SIM provision and you go next.
Okay, so first thing,
And,
during the
keep
morning
everything
session,
default. You go next. And you click. There are a few ways you can do because now it's a variable machine, variable virtual machine, nothing inside. You need to insert a DVD. So you can click that, check this box that edit the virtual machine settings before completion, means before you power it up. You can go continue. So now they give you a chance to review it. And you're happy with this RAM, 1 gig, 1 CPU. And now it's time to adding a DVD. Okay, so you can say data store ISO, go browse, and we have these ISO files. So we have a Windows Server 2003. So you can go click here. And at this moment, don't go finish because I see someone say finish and the system won't recognize it. Make sure you check this window small box that connect at power on. So just treat this as your physical machine. You have your virtual DVD, you have your Windows DVD, and you put this DVD to your virtual to your machine, but you forget to plug the power to the optical drive. So that means you never get connection. That's why if you check this, means when you power on the machine, and you also send the power to the optical drive. So in that case, you can install Windows from this optical drive. Okay, so if we go finish. And that'll be slow here. And because I'm doing both part in the same PC, so I can log in second ESXi from the same place. So I can close that. Okay, I can close this. Okay, now I build my second virtual machine I call test. If you say, I build something I don't like it, you can just right click and say delete from disk. Let's go here and click. I can delete. Okay, so I already built one virtual machine during the break. So let's have a look. So for this virtual machine, for you, the most important is for one PC, you have monitor, keyboard, and mouse, right? So we can have a look of the monitor. You can right click and say open console. So open console means open the monitor, computer monitor for this virtual machine. I can close it and do it again. And this window will be the monitor for this virtual machines. Okay, let me, it's a little bit slow here. So same idea when you install ESXi. So you can build a virtual machine, install ESXi. So when you finish it, this window will show that yellow, half yellow page. Okay, but here we run Windows. It's a little bit slow here. Okay, try again. So why slow? Because this is a VM inside a VM inside a VM. So there are multiple VM layers. So it's getting slow here. Okay, anyway, we are not going to wait this. Maybe they will be back. Oh, slowly come back. Okay, don't spend more time here. Okay, so at this moment, so we try this. And if we open the console, actually you have your monitor for this VM. Okay. Okay, so this is lab 1, the lab 2. Oh, see, it's coming. So this is a display for the virtual machine. So this is Intel, sorry, this is a Windows Server 2008 version 2, R2. And I'm going to close this. But just have a look at my mouse cursor. You see the mouse is jumping here. When you do the lab, you will feel it's really hard to control this mouse circle with your mouse, because when you move, this guy start jump on the window. Yeah, you may say this is terrible. Yeah, for me that's terrible. So why it's like this is because this VM has less communication with the host, which is virtual ESXi. And this one is missing some driver, missing the display driver, keyboard, mouse, virtualization driver. So that's why the best solution for this, see, jump. The best solution here is install VMware tools. Another benefit for VMware tools for this environment or for your desktop or for your workstation is without VMware tools, my mouse is, the cursor is stuck inside this window. I cannot move it outside. I want to move it outside, I need to give a special combination key, which is Control Alt. I can let my mouse get outside. And if I'm outside, I cannot get inside until I go click. So I'm inside. So it's very, very inconvenient. You cannot copy paste between host and this virtual machine. So the benefits are, the solution for that is going to install VMware tools. So how to install it? You can go right click, you go guest, you go install update VMware tools. I click yes. So what they do is this few click will automatically mount another disk, another DVD disk to your virtual machine, and we can just go there and have a look. Okay, it's hard to control this. Go computer. Okay, see they mount another DVD drive, and this is your VMware tools. Okay, double click. Okay, I'm going to. It's already running. Just. Okay, we will let him install and we will compare without VMware tools and with VMware tools. Okay. because that's a part of the lab. And like I said, sometimes you may lose, I may lose, everybody may lose. Is sometimes I'm looking at this window. You should remember this is first thing. This entire window is your remote desktop. Inside this smaller window is another computer's monitor. So sometimes, even I lost. I say where I am, which layer I'm in, which software I'm going to install on which layer. See, I have two mouse cursor. Right? Move in, get in, install. So another benefit for the VMware tools is VMware tools. For the first benefit is install the driver for you and give you the better mouse and keyboard control. Another benefit is VMware tools will talk to the ESXi host. We'll share some information, not the private information. Just say how much CPU this guy is using, how much RAM this guy is using, or how much hard drive this guy is using. So when ESXi or system administrator get all this information, we can make a right call, right? We may say, okay, this guy is running out of the CPU. We need to give this guy more CPU or something like that. So I'm going to click finish and reboot. Okay, just remember we are going to reboot this virtual machine. So this is happening inside this smaller window. Okay, so now it's rebooting. Oh, this is interesting stuff. From here, for all the Windows Server, before you log in, they will say, please send the Control-Delete from the keyboard. So don't try this from your laptop because this is asking from the virtual machine, which is far away from your physical laptop. So if you go this combination key, the first thing happening is your own laptop will call the task manager to the front because your local computer assume you are calling this task manager. So how to do that? So that's why they have a special, button here said enter full screen, which is Control-Alt-Delete. Just go click. I use this to exit full screen. Click OK. Well, no, sorry. Okay, I'm lost here. Okay, that's okay. This guy's here. Here. Okay. Where the button should be? This guy. I cannot use it. Okay. Use no. Okay. Anyway. Control. No, this is Control-Alt-Enter. They should be Control-Alt-Delete. Oh, here. Under the guest, they have this button says send Control-Alt-Delete. Okay, you can go click that one. The ESXi will send this command to your virtual machine and not through your keyboard. So I can put password MENI123. So this is also happening when you have your virtual machine installed on your laptop. Okay, so better to have VMware tools. Oh, normally it's after you install the operating system, the first job is install VMware tools. After you install it, you have this icon called VMware tools. So now you see my mouse is much better. It's very smooth. So between the border, see, I can cross a border. Looks like there's no boundary here, right? So that's the benefit for the VMware tools. So always install it. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. Okay, so we finished the demo for this field lab here. Let's keep talking.
Sorry, Dajan, I have a question. I think you've already allocated the CPU and RAM and these to the ESXi. But what if the storage is far away? What if the storage is we have? I suppose that in the real networking, the storage would be another machine. How
Yes.
these two can be synchronized?
Okay. Good question. Yeah, I didn't. If we start, I can give you this big background. Okay, let's base on this. Let's base on this lab and give you more talk. Okay, that's a good question. And from what I understand is storage is always the first priority. CPU, RAM, not that important, but storage is always most important. So what's happening later? I'll give you a brief talk. You have a local storage here, right? You have local storage. I will put your VM here. And they have some issue because local storage don't support vMotion and other features. So later you have one lab is ask you to move this VM to this iSCSI storage. Okay, so that means all these 4 VM will be physically located inside this storage. And from your ESXi, you only provide them CPU and RAM. And hard drive are all from this iSCSI storage. Okay. So this is like later topic. We will not use local storage. Everything will be on the central. Everything will be centralized.
Okay. So
yep.
we will have this lab later.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll have this
Okay.
lab later.
Yeah.
And that's from your side. From my side, okay. Whatever you have, this all need a storage, right? And all of this one is inside one of my ESXi or multiple ESXi server. I have multiple ESXi here, but I only get one shared storage. That means that means even 1,000 VM are just in one location or in one storage system. That's why I said why I've said storage is first priority is if this one is done, no problem. I can shift the load to the second ESXi, or I can load to the load balancing. I can shut down something not important. But if I lost this, I lost everything. Okay. So storage for VM is always the most important part. Same as for the company, the most important is database, right? If someone deletes their database, they may start losing the business. Okay, so that's why I said what is important. The storage is always number one because for networking, if something wrong, you have time to fix it. CPU, RAM, you can replace them, but for the data, you lost it. Okay. Okay, so that's a good question there.
So just one clarification here, because I joined the session from 1 o'clock, so I'm not sure if it was continuing from the morning. So here you have ESXi 1 and 2. Those are 2 physical machine or 1 physical machine?
No, none of them are physical machine. But like I said, they have 2 layers. As a student, you treat all this box as a physical machine. Okay, you treat them as a physical machine. But as a manager,
that's fine. That's fine. But when we are building EXSI server, okay, so like one of my friend, he asked the question about the storage. Now, when it is a one physical server on one physical server, we can build multiple of virtual servers. So that can be ESXi 1, 2, 3, 4, how many we want, or we can have desktop 1, 2, 3, whatever number of the server we want. Yes. But in this case, we are using all internal resources of one server.
Multiple internal server, not one. We have multiple Blaze server there.
Yeah, but your physical resources are single. Your hardware resources are on.
No, our hardware has multiple physical server, which normally we say is a computing farm. And you won't see it because they have the layers. Okay, So let's try to make this one clear, a little bit clear. So in the big data center, what's happening is not one person config everything, right? They have the job. From the bottom, we have they have the team, which is physical server. They buy a lot of physical server, HP, Dell, or whatever. They put the power, they put the network cable, they grouping them as a farm. So network team, so VM team is just put ESXi on top of each this one.
Physical server,
Yeah, physical server, and make it as a pool. Now we say this is your pool.
So this is your
resource pool.
vCenter.
No, vCenter is here. vCenter is somewhere, and just
One of the physical, yes.
Control. Oh, the vCenter also can be a VM. vCenter can be a VM inside this pool. So this resource pool starts you can build one virtual machine, second virtual machine, third virtual machine. And you may manually say, I want to locate this one in this physical server. I want to locate this one in the same physical server. This one go this physical server. And at the same time, you have your storage. You have multiple storage. And you may say server one, server two from storage number one, and server three from storage number two.
Which is vSAN.
Can be vSAN, can be SCSI, can be FC, a fiber channel.
And this server, when we have this, they will go in a hardware HA, or it will be on a virtual rotating server.
Which one?
The virtual machine, the pool 1, 2, 3. It will be on rotation.
This can be dynamic. Yeah, just sometimes if you don't mention it, system will try to check the both storage. Say if this guy has less load, let's put it here. And when this guy has more load, they can shift some storage load to the other storage, which we call the storage vMotion.
Okay.
Okay.
So in this architecture, we have only one ESXi, which is running on multiple servers. Yes.
You are talking about your lab?
No, just the architecture that you just were. Yes, this one that you have. No,
okay.
Here that you are deleting it.
Yeah. So this one.
The ESXi. So we have only one ESXi.
No, each top of this physical server, they will install ESXi. That's why you have a vCenter to control all this ESXi layer.
So basically, ESXi is the operating system that's used on each server, and then this EXI we can combine. We can group them in the vCenter.
Yes, you can manage it from vCenter, single location, manage them. Okay, and on top you have a resource pool, and you start building VM. So that's why I said it's like your TCP/IP concept, which is one layer just pass the data to another. For the server team, they just keep maintaining all the server and this job. The VMware team just keep maintaining the resource pool. And when there's like this research lab, we'll say, I need one PC to do the high performance calculating. VM team will say, okay, I will build one virtual machine with lots of CPU and RAM. And you pass to the research team. So research team just like regular people log into the Windows and do their MATLAB job or whatever job. But from the bottom, this is a VM team provide this virtual machine. Physical server team provide the resources to the virtual machine team. Okay. So that's why, because we don't get a chance to join the commercial training. If you get a chance, I see someone talking about this commercial training that when you join the commercial training, normally the instructor will group people together, it's a teamwork. So what they group, they ask, what is your background? So normally people come for this training have two backgrounds. One is called the system administrator, which is about PC server and all the PC server stuff. Another team comes with a network. So we know all the switching, VLAN. So that's why instructor will say, if you are a network system administrator, you'd better find a partner which from network side. So normally they group these two together as a team to do this part. So yes, from this topology, you see this as a you do a virtual network, virtual system. What we are dealing with, operating system. We are dealing network, VLAN, right? And that's why we need to have both knowledge combined. Okay, so back to here. At this moment, it's very simple, right? We log in to our ESXi, build one virtual machine inside this VM ESXi storage. So we didn't talk about this part yet. Okay, we didn't talk about this part yet, not yet. Okay, we keep it as simple. Now let's go check where we stopped. Okay. Here. Okay, so let's keep going here. So you already see this after we build a virtual machine, and if you want to see what's happening inside this virtual machine, you have a monitor. You can use this open in remote console button. Click, they will open it. For this latest version, like version 7, if you don't click that button, they have a tiny window, like this tiny window is showing what's happening inside this virtual machine. Very tiny, give you some just brief idea. Right, for Windows, if you see a blue screen, something wrong, it's crashing, it's already crashed. So you can click in and try to do a troubleshoot. Few ways you can open it. You can use click that button, or you can click that button. They have different button doing the same job. Okay, you can open the console. So next one. Okay, create a virtual machine, which I already did it in lab. Let's see what we have here. By the end of this session, you should be able to, okay, that's okay. Okay, about provisioning virtual machine. So you can create a virtual machine in several ways. Okay, use a new virtual machine wizard to create a virtual machine, which we did this, which I did this afternoon. Which you start from beginning, right? They ask you a question, you answer it. Say, what is the name? How many CPU, RAM, hard drive? You start answer the question. After that, you insert disk. Spend half hour to install this Windows Server. You definitely have a few more options. One is called a deploy virtual machine, virtual appliance, or VAPPs store in OVF formats. It's a open virtual machine format, which we call OVF. OVF is kind of the package, right? Like your zip folder. Someone already installed the Windows operating system, everything. They just make a pack. Let's say this is fresh Windows 10. This is a fresh Ubuntu. So when you deploy it, you'll spend 5 minutes to deploy the fresh Windows, not install the Windows, right? Which we call deploy. And another one is use a CentOS Linux Windows template in a vCloud Air category and create a virtual. Then another way we call the template. So I believe they have some more topic about this template. Okay, so just briefly talking, what's the difference between these three? First one is what will happen here is you start from scratch, you build a physical PC, a virtual PC. All the parameter you set it up, you start install OS Windows, and after that you start install TFTP maybe, which may take, let's say, 2 hours. But if your boss say, please give me 10 this TFTP server for 10 different customer, what's happening? You are not going to build 10 by them, right? If you start from scratch, every one in 2 hours, you need to spend 20 hours for this task, which is not good. That's why we have other options. So after you build one good one, and you say, I'm going to build as a clean VM, or you say clean VM or clean template, you can turn to template. After that, you can do clone. Clone means copy paste. You can immediately start cloning this VM, so you can have a identical VM later. So after you have the identical one, you may just a little bit tweaking about IP or username. After that, you can give to your customer. So this is what's happening inside our labs, especially for the education environment. Let's say I have virtual machine for one student. I'm not going to build same virtual machine 70 times, right? I'm just going to clone it 70 times. And another one is called appliance. Virtual machine is a virtual machine, right? We understand virtual machine is what, but what is virtual appliance? Okay, we can go search a VMware appliance market. It's like a superstore. You can go and get a lot of stuff here. Let's see. Let's see what they have here. Okay, under security, you see we have different company. Okay, let's go back to see what they have in data. Let's see networking. Let's see F5 traffic manager and all these different topics. So what's this Citrix? You say, what's this? It's some concept here. So people said, if I can build fresh Windows 10 for my user, so that case I can build something different, right? I can build FTP server, which is clean and professional build, and I can pack this as a virtual appliance. I can put on the market, say this is a fresh build FTP server. And if someone need to deploy FTP server, this guy don't need to build from the scratch. This guy can go download this template or appliance and deploy it, use 5 minutes. And you follow the manual, you may say, change the username, change the password, change your IP, and you're done. The rest job, someone already did for you, which is like appliance. Same as your Python code, right? You don't write everything by yourself. You just use these functions, right? You just load different code and use a function. You're not going to build from scratch. Same idea as a VM. Okay, so this is what we did in our lab. So create a virtual machine with a new virtual machine wizard. So a few questions, we just answer them. Hard drive, DVD, and this is a monitor window, which when you install Windows, this is a monitor window for how you're going to install Windows. Second option is called a deploy OVF template. Same thing, you go to the market or someone say, this is a template, you can use it. They send to you, you go and say, I want to deploy a virtual machine. And they say, please load your OVF. So you just load your OVF here.
Hello, sir. I have a doubt.
Yep.
When you clone virtual machine, does the MAC addresses and all also get cloned, or they automatically get, don't remember, automatically get differentiated?
That's a good question. By default, when you clone the virtual machine, everybody has a random MAC address. Okay. So quickly talk this part is, if I have a PC1 and I clone PC1 become PC1-1, if this is a clone, the MAC address will be, let's say 1122. This one may be 2233. Okay, it's random generate the MAC address. But for some case, you may say, this is my running environment. I want to have identical backup. This will be my identical backup. I want to have the same MAC address. If this one down, this one should be immediately running and my user won't figure out what's the difference. So in that case, you can manually override this MAC address, become the same thing, 1122. Okay, you have this option. You can make them identical if you really want.
Okay.
And what about the UID? It remain unique or
Yeah, good question about UID here. When you do your TCP/IP lab, you will find a very interesting question comes. When you deploy your virtual machine inside your laptop, Shazam may say, okay, there's a window pop-up, and the window pop-up said, do you copy this VM or do you move this VM? Shazam may say, doesn't matter, pick up one. Both are okay. Because we are going deep, so let's talk about what's the difference between these two. So when you say I copied my VM, what I mean? Means you already have this VM somewhere running, and you copy to another location. So the UUID should be unique, right? It's a unique for the CPU ID. So that's why this VM will generate a new UUID or CPU ID for your new VM. So if you click I copy this VM, they will change your CPU ID. But if you say I move my VM, move means this part deleted, I move to the new location. So you still have one copy of this virtual machine. So in that case, you have the same UUID or CPU ID. Okay. So in that case, you have your option. You want to keep the same UUID or you want to randomly generate a new UUID here. Okay, is that answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Just remember by default, when you clone the virtual machine, if some parameter should be unique, so VM will help you generate a new number. For example, MAC address, CPU ID. On top, VMware don't care. Okay. Okay, good question. Let's go back here. Deploy OEF means if I build a virtual machine for someone, for example, if Shasa need some unique TFTP server, I will build this for Shasa. I pack it, send through email, say deploy it and use it. Don't worry. Okay. Okay, here is about VMware tools. So what's the benefit here? This VMware tools is suited for utilities enhance the performance. This performance of virtual machines guest operating system. You see the mouse circle moving, keyboard typing. This is all called performance. When you drag drop this window, the resolution change immediately. This is all called this performance. Okay, so VMware tools benefit also they come with a display driver. They come with a special NIC card driver. And they will try to manage your manage your memory. Since the driver queue with IQ means more information exchange between host and virtual machine. Okay. Increase graphic performance, display, improve mouse performance. And you see the mouse before it's jumping. Now it's everything. Share folder between host and the guest file system. You can copy paste between your host and your VM. So when you do your TCP/IP class, you may see Shasa is copying some parameter or results from your TCP VM and copy and paste to the outside your Word document, which is on your laptop. So that's between copy paste. Here, yeah, it's mentioned here. Copy paste text graphics between the virtual machine and the host desktop. Time synchronization is they synchronize the clock between your physical machine and the virtual machine. Last one. Ability to shut down the virtual machine. You may say, what's that? What's mean shut down? Okay, let's have a look. Here. So this one, I already installed this VMware tools. So if I right click, I go power. you have few options. We have few options here. Power on is not available because this machine is already on. So now I have power off. Right? I have a power off, I have suspend, I have reset, but I have two extra options here, which called shutdown gas and restart gas. And you may say, what's the difference between reset and restart, shutdown and power off? Okay, remember if you don't have VMware tools, these two options are not available for you. Means you cannot do shutdown, you cannot do restart. So what's that? It's very simple, easy to understand. Just see, this is your laptop. Not laptop, desktop. Your laptop has a battery, desktop. So if you have a desktop and how to shut down your desktop, if you are Windows, you click that button from the option, you say power shutdown, right? This one will start close all this application and shut it down. That's one option, shut down. Another option is this guy has a power cord, right? To the wall. You plug it. Another option is instead of you go click few options, you go here, unplug the cable. You can unplug the cable, shut down the PC. But I believe nobody want to do that until you have a blue screen, everything crash. That's no option. The only option left is you unplug this power source, unplug this power cable. And if we know that unplug the cable will be your last option, because if you cannot generally shut down your PC, next time you boot up the PC, you need to rescan your hard drive, make sure everything's okay, no crashing, no error. For the database, it's more issue, right? You may crash the database by suddenly took the power cord from this server. So if this is your virtual machine, this is the same idea. Without VMware tools talking between inside and outside, if we are the manager, the only option left is cut the power from this VM. Okay, you don't have any other option because we cannot log into the user's VM because this VM may belong to company A and you are the company B. So you cannot allow you to log in here and click this Windows button and click shutdown. Not allow you to do that. So only option left is took the power from this virtual machine. And this is bad because you may crash this virtual machine. That's why we have VMware tools here. So from outside, ESXi, we can talk to ESXi, said, can you send a message to this tool and ask tool to send a message to this operating system to shut it, gently shut it down. Don't let me to took the power from you. Okay, so that's why when you have the VMware tools, we have two extra options. Which is shutdown. Actually, when you click this shutdown gas, you will see this window is looks like you go shut down the windows. They will say close this application and close this, close that, and after that shut down. Restart is same as you restart your Windows. They will gently shut down and reboot it. Power off means you don't have option, everything out of your control. You can just cut power for this VM. Okay, reset means you cut the power and you plug the power back to this VM. Okay, suspend is you can just temporarily stop this virtual machine and you say, I will use it tomorrow, and tomorrow you come back. It's same as your laptop. When you are not ready to shut down your laptop, you close your laptop screen. The laptop goes sleep. It's kind of the sleep mode. So next time when you open the monitor or the display, your Windows immediately come back or your Mac immediately come back. Same idea, suspend. Okay. Okay, so this is, we mentioned ability to shut down this virtual machine. The next topic is remove a virtual machine. You have two options. two ways. One is called remove from the inventory. Second one is called delete from the disk. So if you remove from the inventory, you just unregister this virtual machine, okay? And you can add it later. If you say, I did a mistake, I shouldn't remove it, you can add it back. So when you say delete, means you are permanently deleted from your hard drive. It says storage, but same idea as hard drive. So what's happening is if this is the ESXi OV center, and this is your storage. If we say this is your VM, if we say remove from inventory, they will took one VM from this inventory list. This VM will be still will be saved inside your storage. That means you are not free some storage space. Like I said, you remove it after a few months. Suddenly you say, oh, I still need it. You can scan and bring this VM back to your inventory list. But sometimes you say, oh, I'm 100% sure I don't need this VM anymore. Maybe it's a lab environment or whatever. So I want to free my space. You can say delete from disk. So that means they will delete from the inventory list and they're going to delete from your storage and free some space here. During the working, if you go for this, if you go to working environment, if you have enough space, you have a lot of free space, use remove from inventory, okay? And keep it as backup. Who knows, after months or a few weeks, few months, suddenly you say, I still need it. Okay, if you have lots of free space, you say, well, I just keep it as a backup. When I need it, I will bring it back. Okay, until you say I have very limited resources, I must delete it. Okay, that's the bad or the last option you have. So delete it to free some space.
Sorry, Darshan, how about the allocation? The resource allocation would be keep if we just remove it from inventory.
Inventory is like your inventory is just a list. Okay, you remove it from this list. But for this VM, you know, this first thing we should understand, this is a folder, right? Under the folder, you have your C drive, D drive, plus you have your configuration means how many CPU core, how many RAM, all this configuration packed inside the storage. So when you try to register this one back, your ESXi will reuse all this configuration, CPU, RAM, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So remove from list means really just remove from this list. So user cannot see it, but all the parameters are saved inside this folder. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good question. Troubleshooting OS install failure on the ESXi host. They have some problems, cannot start. They have some way you can just go and do the troubleshooting. And VMware tool installation problem, if you have some error, you can just go check the resolution here. This one is working with virtual machine, which is lab 3. I think we did that. Key point. You can add virtual machine wider. Okay, this is part of the lab. Okay, so we finished module 3. Let's go module 4. Okay, so module 4 is become more interesting. Is we are start talking a little bit high level stuff. Now we are going to talk about the vCenter server. Important. VMware vCenter server enable you to centralize, manage multiple ESXi hosts and their virtual machines. Failure to install config, reduce. Okay, so just let you know everything will be centralized. Learning objectives. Okay. Yeah, about vCenter server management platform. This is a good picture because if we don't have this vCenter, what will be our job? What will be our life here? So as a system administrator, you have this box, you have this ESXi, and on top you have virtual machines. So sometimes you have a big box, you may talking about 100 virtual machine each box. Now one box is okay, two box not bad, three is okay, but when you're talking about on the bottom, you have 100 or even not 150, you start become a big issue because if you log into one ESXi and checking the log, everything, and you spend 30 minutes, go through 50 of them, you need to have 25 hours, which you're only working 8 hours a day, right? Just go through the entire data center, you need to spend 3 days, which is not good. That's why I said, can we centralize them? The answer is yes, we can use vCenter. So that's why we have the vCenter server on top. So vCenter top server will talk to the entire infrastructure. They will start manage the ESXi, all the virtual machine on top, virtual network. Okay, so that's why we want to have this vCenter server. When this business scale grow up, if you get a chance to working with a small company, you may say this small company may only have 1 or 2 or maybe maximum 3 ESXi hosts and running this some application there. And you may ask them, say, why you don't have vCenter in your application, in your data center? The answer is about the cost. vCenter costs you a lot of money. If you didn't benefit from this money, some company just say, I don't want to spend this money. Because you have a small data center, my people can manage it without data center, without vCenter. Okay. So in that case, it's not say all the company will have a vCenter. If they are a small company, they try to save the budget, they don't need to have a vCenter here. Because I see the smallest company may only get 1 server and running 10 VM on top. Because it's not mission critical. If the VM down, that's okay, no problem. So in that case, they just run this one. Okay. So vCenter server architecture. Yeah. So on the bottom is your ESXi host. Before we have vCenter, you have a vSphere client to manage this stuff. And at the same time, they have the shared storage. But after we have vCenter, the management flow like this way. You log in to vCenter, and vCenter will help you manage all the ESXi hosts. Right, so when you log into vCenter, when you put the username password, this one called the single sign-on. Okay, it's like it's across the entire platform. You just need to log in once, and you can use the entire infrastructure service. So single sign-on, the short name for that is called SSO. Okay, it's very popular now. You see if you're going to someone may talk to you, say we use SSO to do that authentication. You know, when you say SSO, there's a single sign-on. On top, you have this Active Directory domain. You know, if you're a Windows guy, you know this is username, password, database, right? Okay. Same one, just this one have some API. If you are the programmer or you are third party, or you can have some plugin to talk to a vCenter. Otherwise, for most of us, we use a web client. Okay, so web client goes through the entire vCenter.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it a necessity to have a fully qualified domain name for installing vCenter? Can we bypass it?
No, you cannot bypass. It's mandatory. You must have a single sign-on domain. It's not AD domain, it's a single sign-on domain. So you cannot say, I just want to use username root. No, you must have some root at single sign-on domain.com or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so there's something like the domain there. Okay.
So we don't need to have a.
Go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
So this name lookup, it can be local. No need to have a centralized DNS system. If it is a small company
Yes.
and there is no. Yeah.
Yes, you are right. When we go a little bit deeper there, they have you have a few ways to deploy your vCenter. Based on the company size, you actually can combine database, authentication, everything in one virtual machine or one location. If you have a huge company, everything will be separate. You have a dedicated database, dedicated domain controller. But for small company, everything will be grouped to one virtual machine.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's here. We have a platform server service controller. So vCenter server include a platform service controller. This one. So the platform service controller includes a set of the common infrastructure service, single sign-on, license server, lookup server, directory service. Okay. So like I said, if you have a small company, you can just deploy everything under one virtual machine, or you put on a PC or server. You can combine everything together. Okay, so other feature install, update, okay. Have some other feature, some auto deploy, dump collector. Depends on the environment, you may need them. Okay. So this is how they talk to each other. So this is your vCenter GUI. Normally you put a vCenter address, server address, and you get this GUI. Okay, from the GUI, you actually talk to the vCenter, and vCenter, we don't have, for this lab, we have this, but in the later version, we don't have this web client. Okay, so the only thing left is this TCP UDP 902 and talk to your ESXi host, right? You send the command to vCenter, vCenter will push the configuration to the ESXi host. Plugins. Plugin is some third party or third company, for example, storage company. They normally provide, if you buy their product, they provide you plugins. You can plug in this to your vCenter. Okay, so let's see. vSphere Web Client has several plugin package, and plugin are ability to provide additional feature. You know, some company will have a dedicated feature for their product and the function to the vCenter server. Third party like EMC, so we have an EMC storage here, so we have a EMC plugin, and some server plugin, HP Dell or whatever. Just give you a basic example about this plugin. If this is my EMC storage, right? On the bottom, I have all the traditional hard drive. So I will grouping them as a pool. So on the top of the pool, I may have two long one, long two, but it's a virtual long. Physically, everything is inside this box. And this box has their own dedicated CPU, RAM, they run their own operating system. So let's say if I'm the vCenter here and I control ESXi. ESXi has this dedicated storage. And now they say I build a virtual machine. And without plugin, when you give a vMotion, you say, please move this VM from long 1 to long 2. So what's happening? This vCenter will ask ESXi, say, go read data and send it to long 2 without plugin. because this vCenter have no idea long one and long two in the same machine. So with plugin, when you send the same command, the vCenter know, okay, long one, long two in the same machine, same storage, and this guy just send a command, say, please move VM from 1 to 2. So this EMC storage will do the internal copy or internal copy paste or cut paste. It's much faster than goes through the entire network. Okay. So that's some which we call the third-party plugin provides you additional features, some feature like that. Okay, next one is deploy vCenter appliance. Okay. vCenter Server appliance feature. vCenter Server appliance is pre-configured. I see most of this configuration part are done. It's a pre-configured Linux-based virtual machine. And just pay attention here. Here we say this is called vCenter Server appliance. If you remember what we said, what is appliance? Appliance means someone already built this entire infrastructure from OS, database, the configuration, everything, security, patching. They spend 2-3 days, even 1 month to put everything together. So when you deploy, half-hour job. Okay, so that's why we said this is pre-configured. Okay, Linux-based. Later we may say they have another version which is Windows-based, but when you have appliance, it's Linux-based. So they run the SUIC Linux enterprise version. They have the built-in SQL database, suitable environment up to 1,000 hosts and 10,000 virtual machine. In most cases, this is more than enough, right? For our department, we have only less than 10. I guess, give me a second. We have around 10 hosts, and we have around 2,000 virtual machines. So one vCenter is more than enough. They also support the Oracle database external outside the Oracle database. So you troubleshooting centralized authentication. Okay, so this is, remember this is appliance. And hopefully someone will talk about it. No. So one is appliance, we will talk about Windows version later. Okay. So vCenter applies basic. So when you deploy it, you have a few options. Go ahead, just wait. Okay, so when you deploy it, let's see what they say. vCenter appliance is functionally equivalent to vCenter installed on the Windows Server. Okay, that's a sentence here. So deploy appliance less than 30 minutes. You few click, they will deploy for you. And it's equivalent to a vCenter server installed on the Windows Server. So you have another option is you have a Windows Server and you on top you install the vCenter, you install database, you connect them together, you put a single sign-on, connect them together. After, I don't know, few days, your system will be running. Okay. When you deploy the vCenter appliance, you have a few options. Okay, so this is the most popular way we can deploy it. Just put everything together, one virtual machine, and done. But for some companies, they have a much bigger database data center, so they may pick up different way to deploy. Deploy a platform service controller, and you can have a multiple vCenter running. Okay. So if you pay attention here is after if we say we can have one controller, 2 vCenter, companies say I have even bigger than that. Now you can have 2 controller and 3 vCenter, right? And you have load balancer between. But most of our case is one VM, one vCenter is more than enough. Okay. They have a few way to deploy the big scale. All right, so back to here, let's compare what's the difference between the vCenter server appliance are scalable. So they have this chart. This is Windows, this is appliance. Appliance running on Linux, and the Windows is Windows. And from here you say how's the per vCenter? Same number, same number, same number, same number, and everything is same. You say why they provide me this chart? Looks like identical. The story is if we go back the older version, now 6, if we go 5 or 5.5, the old version is like this. Windows version is much stronger than the appliance. The appliance maybe 200. Not 200. Let's see, 100. 500 hosts per cluster, maybe 32. Okay. Oh, you'll see this number are very, very small from the old version. And even the medium-sized company cannot use appliance. So if you have the older version of the vCenter, the Windows is become your only option. But from version 6, they all equal. So it means doesn't matter which version you want to use. So another benefit by using appliance, not Windows version, is about the cost. This cost is not about the vCenter. vCenter will be the same cost for you because you need to buy the license for the vCenter. The cost is from this license key for Windows, because this license are free. This is a free version Linux, so this appliance are free. Operating system are free. OS are free. But when you have the Windows server, first thing you pay 2K US dollar for this Windows server. After that, you can build a vCenter on top, and after that, you spend more money on the license part. And even worst case is you are not need to one, you need to have a multiple. Maybe that's 3 Windows server, and each one costs you 2K. So the first thing you spend 6K for the operating system, because you may have 1 DB, you may have 1 VC, you may have 1 authentication. At least you have a 2 or 3 server running. So that's why if you have a newer data center, nobody use Windows. Everybody start with appliance. Simple, easy, reliable. Because if you have Windows, you remember another one is you need to keep patching your Windows and keep updating your Windows. Okay, so from version 6, almost everybody start with appliance. Okay. vSphere license server. In a vCenter, they have a dedicated service running, like you put your ESXi license, vCenter license, vSun, whatever license you put in one location. And this server will help you to assign this license to different location, like ESXi host or vCenter. Okay, so that's why I say it's a license service. Deployment. First, so if you use appliance, deploy a vCenter is as same as deploy a virtual machine, Windows virtual machine. A little bit different is when you deploy when you deploy this vCenter, they may ask you more detailed question about what is the single sign-on domain, what is the administrator password, what is IP, what is the DNS, what is the host name. Some extra information when you deploy it. Deploy vCenter server appliance. vCenter appliance install media. Okay. See, this is how you deploy it. Normally they have this GUI. It's a web-based GUI. You can just go click install, and they will ask you a few questions where you want to install it. What is FQDN, which is domain name for this vCenter, username, password. Okay. They have two parts. Because when you deploy the virtual machine, let's do this way. This is your ESXi. Let's say you have one ESXi. You already have one VM running. Now you say, I want to deploy a vCenter. Right. So during the deploy, okay,
Sir, I had a question.
Yep.
Sir, when you are deploying VMware vCenter and when you give the FQDN username and password, where this authentication is happening? Is it happening within the EXX or will it go to the Active Directory?
Okay. Yeah, good. After that, this part actually is asking you where you want to deploy it. Let's say you have two. This guy has some VM. Now you say, I want to deploy a VM, a vCenter, but they may ask you where you want to deploy it. You may say, I want to deploy here. So for this username, for this IP address, username and password, actually you point this to this ESXi, not that ESXi. Okay, so this first username password is talking about where you want to deploy this vCenter. And the second window is talking about what is your vCenter name and what is the password. Okay. And next one, after that, they will say which platform you want to have it. So normally we have the basic one, right? Combine everything together. And here they say single sign-on. You can join, if you have a single sign-on authentication server, you can just join it. If you don't have it, you can just build one, brand new one here. So by default, administrator is the default name. Okay, you put your password, you put some brand new domain name, and you can name your site, like Halifax. Go ahead.
Sir, here, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
So here in this step, with the screenshot which I've shown, is if the FQDN lookup is not failing in the network, this step won't work, right?
You mean
lookup.
Which part? This part?
Yes.
No, this one, if you say I want to create a new one, you can put anything you like.
But does it has to resolve to IP address in the back?
No.
Domain name?
No. No, you can put anything you like. This single sign-on domain is just a name. It's not really about your domain name. It can be same, can be different. If I remember, okay, go ahead.
No, okay. Because I always face problem in this step. Domain controller authentication issue.
Okay. I think a long time ago I facing some issue, but recently I never facing this kind of issue. I always gave some virtual domain name. Really doesn't matter. You can put nwk.com, which we don't have this domain, but we use it. It's kind of, if you don't have that very complex network, if this is vCenter, a single sign-on a built-in, and all the user log into this vCenter, you can give any domain you like, because this is not talking to the outside. Everything is inside this vCenter.
Okay, sir.
Maybe you forget to give something dot. They always say something dot something. If you just say nwk, no, it's not working, I believe. You must say nwk.com, nwk.ca, whatever, or .local. So during our lab manual, you see we have a lot of vSphere class .local, which is some virtual domain name.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Next one is after you pick up your single sign-on domain name. Next one is about the size. They have from the tiny to the huge. Okay, they have the size. Normally we start with the smaller one. If your company is small, you start with the smaller one because we can always grow up. Okay, you can always grow up. But the issue is if you start with the big one, it's hard to reduce the size. This is very hard. Okay, so if you know the size of your company, you may start from tiny, or you may start from the small. And after your business start growing, you can grow the size. Okay. For all the VM, remember you start always with the tiny resources because it's always easier to grow up and not reduce. If you want to shrink the size, it's a huge task. But to increase the size is just a few clicks. And if we compare this with first thing is we up to 20 hosts, 400 virtual machine until 1,000 hosts, 10,000 virtual machine. The difference here is about CPU. First, 2 4 A16 CPU core and the RAM, A16, 24, 32 GB RAM. For the hard drive, they always use the same amount of the hard drive, not very big. Okay, the only thing about is CPU and RAM. So that's why I say you can easily grow to any number you like. Okay, it's 2:37. Let's have a break. Okay, let's have a break and come back on the 30 minutes. 50. Okay, let's have a 30 minutes break and come back on the 2:50. Okay, it's 2:48. Like I said, you have any question for me? Okay, good. Let's see. So if you are from the physical, if you finish your physical course, yes, your coming course is your is a TCP/IP, right? Shasab will teaching you TCP/IP there. And if you finish your intro, oh, your next one will be the math. Okay, it's 2:50. Let's come back. So in that case, you never get a chance to visit our physical location, means our office or classroom. So everything is online. Just share your. Go ahead.
mean not yet because I didn't travel yet.
Yeah. Okay. Let's share some screen, some pictures. This is what we did. I just built. Some of us we work together build this new room. So this will be your A201 classroom. So this is before we start building it. This is all the new computer, new monitor, and the brand new ARM. And let's see, I have some picture after we build it. Yeah, so this is after we build it. Now you have the brand new classroom or lab room. Yeah. So this is from the back. So this is normally your one of your lab room. You have a whiteboard, two projector, and on the side you have a two both side the whiteboard. Okay. Yeah, there's something there. So hopefully you can travel soon and come to enjoy this. Everything is brand new. Okay. Okay, wait, let's back to our lab, not lab, workshop. So we talk about the appliance size. Okay, depends on your company. You can just pick up the right size for your company. And if you are not 100% sure, we can always start from the small, or we always start from the tiny, and we can grow them up later. Select the data store. Like I said, if you have ESXi, two ESXi, and at the same time, you may have a different storage. So now you say, I want my vCenter use this CPU and RAM. So at the same time, you need to say, okay, I want to put the storage or the vCenter in this storage. Okay, so you need to pick up one storage location and use it. Network, and after that is just basic network parameter, you pick up which network you want to talk, IPv4, static route, static IP address, and some mask, and default gateway DNS server address. After everything deployed, and you can just log in from your browser. Normally you put that appliance vCenter IP address, and you have this one. It's a GUI based. Sorry, it's a web based. Yeah, so GUI based. First thing you log in, you will see they will pop up a warning said, okay, this is under a trial version. There's no license. You have certain days, normally 60 days for the evaluation period, and you need to put your license if you want to use it. So during the lab, they have some way you can go click, and add some license I provide to you. Okay. After that, I see. Okay, this is something this part is not talking about. I'm going to talk a little bit here. So when you deploy your vCenter, ESXi license, you see here they have the usage and they have the capacity. Normally, when you see unlimited CPU, this license will cost you a lot of money. So most case, this license is based on CPU. If you say I want to buy one CPU, let's say it costs you 1K. If you want to buy 10 CPU, it costs you maybe 10K. Okay, so if you have 10 CPU, they have a 10 CPU here instead of unlimited. And if you have a one ESXi host, this ESXi host use 4 CPUs. So you will say, what is 4 CPUs here? VMware are smart. This is not smart means a company is doing the business not only about the technology, it's also about the money. If you have a motherboard, if you have one CPU, this one will say I use one CPU. If this guy say 4 CPU, that means on the motherboard, this guy has a 4 physical CPU. Okay, so immediately you will have 6 CPU left for the license. So you say, why is it based on CPU, not based on the server? You know, some other like your Windows, right? Windows license is like you have a Windows server, whatever CPU you have. If you have a 4 CPU, you only pay one license for, say, Windows 10 or Windows, sorry, not Windows 10, Windows Server. You only pay one license, and this license don't care how many CPU running on the bottom. And you say, why ESXi care? It's because if they don't care that, I will buy just one license, right? They will say one instance or one physical machine, and I'm going to spend 100,000 to build a big server with a huge motherboard, and I put as much CPU as I can, and I only pay VMware one license. And on top, I can put 100,000 virtual machine inside one of this box. In that case, VMware not making any money. That's why they said, no, we don't want to have one physical box. I want to per CPU. That means you have a 10 CPU, you need to buy 10 CPU license, even you just have one server here. Okay, so now you know this concept. And during the before the intro, normally we talking about, we always talking about CPU performance is based on CPU benchmark, right? Now if we go CPU benchmark, high-end CPU, you see this benchmark can go very high, like 77,000. And some of them are lower performance. Some of them are server grade. Let's say it's just a mathematics, right? Let's say your customer or your boss asks you to build. They say we need, let's see, If one is 10,000, okay, 10,000, 10K. Let's say you need to build 100K performance benchmark. 100K benchmark server. So what is the best way to build it and save you money? You buy the higher performance CPU, like you may buy 50K performance CPU, and you add 2 of them. So now you have 100K. And what's the license cost? You have 2 CPU, means you cost 2K for license. Okay. And you have another option. You buy 25K CPU and you buy 4 of them. And here you pay license fee 4 by CPU, which is 4K. And you may say, okay, looks like this guy saved me some money. The truth is not sure. It's hard to say. Why I'm saying that is you also need to consider the CPU cost. For example, if this, let's make a, if this one 25K CPU costs you 1K, I make a basic example. So all the CPU will cost you 4K. So 4K plus 4K, 8K. And normally this performance is not follow the price. If you double the performance, normally you triple or even 4 or 5 times then the cost. Let's say this one costs you 5K. So as everything together, you're talking about 12K. Okay, so if you're building from scratch, you need to balance everything. You need to balance the cost of your motherboard, your CPU, your physical hardware plus the license fee. Okay, so you always find the best balance between all these numbers to save some money. Also, it can be also it's good when your boss asks you to build this server, you provide different configuration with different total price, and you show to your boss, say, see, I considered everything, all the combination, and you may pick up something. Okay, in that case, you become look very professional because you consider everything, hardware, software, license, okay, everything. Okay, so this is something extra about this license. Next one is config vCenter server setting, access vCenter setting. Oh, that's a general. You have some basic stuff. This is what? Never use this one. Managing vCenter server, the main system configuration, homepage, and services. Okay, you can go there and click and have a look. In the past few years, I never go detail about this kind of services. Also, they also provide you. Yeah, go ahead.
I got a little bit confused for this VM center. I remember if imagine that we have one standalone computer with 4 CPUs and we don't want to connect multiple ESXi. We just want to create one ESXi and use all the hardware resource available on one computer. Do we still need this license? Because this is for vCenter. Imagine
No.
we don't want to use vCenter.
No, just have a look here. You see this? There are 2 licenses. This one is vCenter license, the bottom one. And the top one is your ESXi host license.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for your laptop, we have a workstation license for Windows, and we have a player license. You know, what's the difference between workstation and player is player only play, like your MP3 player. Someone will give you the virtual machine, and your player can only play the virtual machine. Workstation means you can create a virtual machine under your laptop. So for the Fusion, it's the same. We have a Fusion and we have a Fusion player. It's the same idea for the Mac user. And for the server side, we have 2 licenses. For each ESXi, you need to have a license. And for the vCenter, you have another dedicated license, which is vCenter.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so here, next one is the product you see. For the vCenter, their base is an instance. If you have a 1 vCenter running, that's called 1 instance. You have 2 vCenter running, that's 2 instance. But for the ESXi host, that's this installed on the virtual physical server, they count as a CPU number. Okay, so that's something different.
Yes. Okay, I got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
so in that case, that they can make money if ESXi is free. I think the VMware already bankrupt. Yeah, so everything need to spend some money there. Oh, where are we? Here. Okay, some of this feature, you just need to know they have it. When you need it, you will need it. They also have some healthy or statics report, so you can go and have a look. This part is interesting. NTP server. Everybody know what is NTP server, right? NTP server provides you the time, the accurate time from servers through the internet and to your phone, to your laptop, to everything. So here we say network timing protocol NTP is a client server protocol used synchronize the computer's clock to a time reference. NTP is important because all the graphics, all the logs, when you have some issue, you analog the logs. They all need to have very accurate time stamps. Okay. And also for your virtual machine, you need to have a source to synchronize between virtual machine and the physical machine, which is the ESXi host. Okay, so ESXi host can be configured as NTP client. It can synchronize time with NTP server on the internet or your corporate NTP server. Okay. So if you have chance to look around your Windows clock, Windows time, they have their dedicated NTP server. You can always put your own NTP server there. They point to some pool.ntp.org. If you say NTP server, the most popular one is this one called pool.ntp.org. If you are not sure what NTP server you should put, always put this one, pool.ntp.org. Okay, so they will provide you the accurate time and from their server. Okay, why I'm saying this is an interesting topic is, okay, now we know the NTP server will provide you the accurate clock for your laptop, for your cell phone, for all the smart devices, smart plug, smart switch, smart bulb. But another question is how this server get this time? Okay, let's put a NTP server.
So it get from the GPS.
Yes. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, let's pick up this guy. So NTP server is really not the big server, right? It can be a palm size. And the source, the most important, the timing source is actually from your GPS signal. Okay, so in that case, this doesn't matter, the tiny server or big server inside the server rack, you'll have a dedicated cable, coaxial cable connect to the back of this NTP server and connect it to the outside. Sometimes they run the cable to the roof and they put a GPS antenna on top. So if you get a chance to visit our Dell's main library, we have the main data center there. So we build data center in the basement. But next time, if you really get a chance to have a look, you go there, you say, where's your NTP server? They may say, oh, this is our NTP server. And you go back to the back of the NTP server, you will see a big black coaxial cable run. And you may say, where is this cable run? They may tell you this one is running on top of the roof. Okay. So though the accurate clock is from GPS signal. Okay, so next time when you, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Well, if there is any kind of other entities that does not have like a GPS, but resolve the IP address and determine the location according to the ISPs and etc.
This is kind of this way. See, when you have the NTP server with antenna, that's a source. Send to your NTP server. After that, you have your network. Go to the provide service to internet. Sorry. Sometimes you say, I'll give you an example. Inside our NWK network, we don't have any NTP server. So you have two options. We have firewall. And we have all the server or client behind it. One option is you let your client or server go through firewall, talk to this NTP server, or any NTP server. But for the security reason, you open more protocol, you get more chance to let some hackers get in, right? So another option is that this firewall you run NTP agent inside. So all the client need to talk to this NTP server. This firewall's NTP server will collect the accurate data from other NTP server. Okay, so it's not say all the NTP server have a GPS. No, if my NTP server can talk to another NTP server, I can provide that accurate clock to my client. Did that answer your question?
Yes, but in some systems which has like an orchestration solution, like like whenever you have like multiple edge devices or multiple sites, and they are connecting through an orchestrator, and I believe they are getting the timing from the orchestrator itself, and you have like you are capable to assign the time zone for each one of them if it is not auto detected. But I didn't actually find in any of these kind of orchestrator solutions that it connects or gets its info or details from other NTP server. Basically, it is the source.
You mean the time zone, right?
The time zone, yes, the timing itself and all those sort of stuff.
I believe all NTP server only provide UTC time. And when you display, you add your own time zone. They only have one standard UTC time provide to you, and you add whatever time zone you need to add on top.
Yeah, I believe, I think your NTP, which is connected with the GPS, it's your startum 0, okay? And then the lower one is your startum 1. For the different data centers, for the different time zone, you can have multiple NTP server with the Strum 16, and the startum 16 can give you different time zone based on the data center location.
Yep.
On the back end, all of will be in the cluster. So it will be primary and secondary, but each data center will have your own time zone.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that, yes. But if you do troubleshooting, normally they don't apply time zone there. They put everything as a UTC time. So if you cross the data center do troubleshooting, you compare both log. So normally we don't apply the time zone. Everything is based on UTC time. Okay. Okay, and basically for your Windows laptop, your Windows laptop don't have GPS to provide the location. So they based on your IP. You know, if you are IP from Halifax, your Windows will automatically add a -4 to the UTC time. Okay. So it's not only about the NTP server. If you get a chance to have a look, recently, if you bought a car, and the car if have a GPS guidance system, and normally you don't need to manually change your car's clock. Normally they synchronize the clock with the GPS. Okay. So that's two features from GPS: location and time. Okay. Okay, so there's some configuration from this ESXi. So it just, no, sorry, from the vCenter, you can configure NTP server or, sorry, NTP client here to point to NTP server. So in that case, it's like this way. If you have physical machine ESXi running, the first thing you have a very accurate clock. Normally you have virtual machine on top. So virtual machine, you try to synchronize the clock with your ESXi NTP. Okay, so they will synchronize the clock. But sometimes you see the issue is you log into your VM, and even this VM has the right time zone. Let's say this guy is Halifax, and this guy but have different clock. So in that case, you may double check all the NTP configuration. So make sure all the information are synchronized between your virtual machine and your vCenter. Okay, so this is lab number 4. Lab number 4 is asking access vCenter server appliance, install appliance and key, the host key. Create a data center object. I do ESX host vCenter server inventory. Okay, and the last one is NTP client. Next one is vSphere web client. So when you get access to your vCenter, this is a basic blue screen you get. Normally you put the IP or domain name, and you will immediately get this page. And the first thing you will find is on the bottom. Normally they say, please download and install the client integration plugin. If you don't want to install it, that's fine. If you install it, the benefit for that is give you some more features like drag drop feature. So during the lab, this one is pre-downloaded. You can just install it from the folder. But in the real world, if you have a brand new laptop, you go to your office. If you don't have it, you'd better to install it before you log in. Okay. So after you logged in, this is the page or the GUI for the vCenter. On the left-hand side is all the navigator panel. On the right-hand side is all the detailed button here. This guy just say you go different place, you see a different content there. So just remember for basic VM operator, most job is use mouse, click, or use a keyboard to type few words. So most job is just go click. So the important thing is you know where you should go and click it. Yeah, that's why we say our lab is a clickly lab because if you go through our lab menu, you see most lab said go here, click, go there, click, go here, click, go there, click. So if you follow my lab menu, finish it, and if you don't understand what's that, you say this is just a click lab. Yeah, this is a cluster, a host and cluster inventory view. You go and click, you see the view. and you click different place, you have a storage and network view. This is most on the top from here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So this 4 button. Okay, the first one is called host and cluster. Second one is called VM. This is host. And this one is your storage. And this one is your network. Only 4 big topic, and they build 4 big button on top. So if you go click host, and you have your ESXi display here. Some virtual machine is under the ESXi. So if you just click this virtual machine button, they will hide all the ESXi, and they only display all the virtual machine under the folder. So in that case, if you see this, you may not know maybe the first virtual machine is from where. Maybe this guy from ESXi1, this guy may from ESXi2. We don't know. The only place we can find it is from the first button, which is called host and cluster button. So if we don't care, normally the concept is pool, right? We say we have a big pool. I don't care which ESXi, which VM belong to which ESXi. So I just care how many VM inside this pool. So this view is kind of the resource pool. Next one is the storage. You have a local storage or shared storage. Everything's here. So if you click one of these storage, they will show what kind of virtual machine inside this storage. Last button is a network button. We can have different network, different virtual switch. And if you go click, you can find the detail about network. Okay. This one is showing if we click from the vCenter, if we click one of our ESXi, we will see something like the summary. This is the ESXi. How many CPU, RAM, and storage available here, and how many virtual NIC card here, or how many virtual machine already inside. Yeah. Sorry. This is a real recent object. They have a clock. I never use this button, but it's there. You can try it. You click this show, they will show what button you already pushed, so you can reuse them. And on the right side, you have a filter. You can put some keyword and quickly find the answer you want. Like certain virtual machine, you put the short name, you find that virtual machine for you. Yeah, drag drop function. So if you have the plugin installed to your local, I'm talking about the working environment on your local laptop, you can use the drag drop feature. Yeah, and F5. Okay. So next topic is about how you're going to manage the vCenter server inventory. So why I say this is because from this diagram, you can have a different data center located on different locations, like Toronto, Los Angeles. What's that? Milwaukee and Paris. Okay, so but you can grouping them together, which is one vCenter control all the different physical location data center. Means each data center may have a few hundred hosts, may have a few thousand ESXi, few thousand virtual machine, but everything will be under one vCenter. So that's why they have the system help you organize the view. Let's say first thing under one data center, you can have two. You can have different type of the folder. Okay, so let's see, they have the detail about this. Oh, okay. Okay, you can have this. See, they have two different colors. For the blue one, this is called the VM folder. You can group different VM inside this folder. Let's say this database, you can have two VM and template grouping them in one folder. Also, you can group the host. Host means physical server. You can name them Intel CPU based, and you can group AMD host, AMD CPU based. Okay. So just use folder to organize the entire data center and give you a better view. So using folders, so you can use folders to group objects of the same type of the easier management, right? You can just group them based on maybe based on the location, maybe based on the function. You can just put your own groups there. So okay, next one, adding a host to the vCenter server inventory. So what's happening here is it's kind of chicken egg chicken issue. Let's say first thing, we build an ESXi host. Right? We configure that guy. And now you on top, we build a virtual machine. This one is vCenter. And after you log into the vCenter, you will see in the inventory list, it's empty. So now the next job is you need to add this ESXi to the vCenter, which we say here, adding a host to the vCenter server. It's not about one ESXi. You may have a multiple ESXi. After you set up your vCenter, now it's time to let everybody join. Okay. So how to add it? You can just go click add host. After that, they will say, what is the IP address or domain name? And after that, you will say username, password. You can just add it. Creating a custom tag for the inventory objects. Okay. Event. So they have the event button, so you can go and check some events there. Some information. This part will help you a lot. Another one is you can go to system logs, and when you have an issue with the system, it's a good way to use it and do the troubleshooting. Lab 6. Lab 6 is just create a folder in the vCenter appliance, means you will create a host folder, which means a host and cluster folder for ESXi host. Or you may create a virtual machine and template holder for VM machine, virtual machine. Okay. So this is module 4. Let's see what is module 5 here. Okay, module 5 is talking about config and manage virtual network. So this will be a big topic. I'm not sure 30 minutes is not more than enough to cover some big topic here. Maybe we put this topic tomorrow. So tomorrow we are going to talk about virtual network, and we are going to talk about storage. And what's that? No, don't need that part. Yeah, some resources management maybe. Okay, anyway, tomorrow we will start with a new topic, which is network side. So now it's 3:30. Any question for me or any topic you want me to review about this module 1 to module 4?
Sorry, I have a question, but I'm not sure if it is related to this one. But
Yeah, go ahead.
Since I've seen this DNS a lot of time here, a domain name, I'm just I don't know what DNS do. It's just retrieving the IP address of a domain and send it back to you, the domain. But even though even I saw in the lab configuration that we in the DHCP configuration we configured the DNS IP. That is completely makes sense. But I don't know why every time that we are configuring the DNS IP, we have to configure the domain name. What that domain name do? Because we are just dealing with the IP. As far as I have the IP address, we don't need the DNS, the domain name. Yes.
Yes,
Isn't?
I agree. I agree. If you have IP address, you don't have a domain name. So your question may become why we need a domain name. Sorry, why we need DNS maybe.
I know that maybe we want to change our IP address, but we want to keep our name, so that makes sense. But when it comes to the implementation in the network, I think dealing with IP is more convenient with the domain name. But for the domain is for the
Is that
people.
related to Active Directory or something like that?
I'm not sure. It's because I also don't know what is Active Directory, but because here I saw a little some configuration for the domain name. Why do we need to configure the domain name? Why just this one?
Okay, let's try to let's see. Let's go through the basic one. First thing about the domain name. Sorry. First thing about the DNS. I agree with you. Sometimes use IP is better than the domain name. Okay, domain name can be google.com, right? Can be nwk.com, can be dell.ca. Let's go the domain name. And if let's see how to start with this. Okay, so why we need DNS? The first thing is when you go to the Google, you don't want to really remember IP address for the Google website, right? So that's why we always say google.com. So when you send the google.com to the DNS, the local DNS will do the resolution for the local kind of close to this Google server IP address and send to you. Okay, if you are from different country, you do google.com, they will, from DNS server, they give you different IP to visit. Even everybody say google.com because they have different server in different location. Okay, for the big company, DNS is always good, like Facebook. For the small company, IP, vCenter configuration, I feel. Yes or no, someone put that answer. The answer can be, how can I say, 100% accurate. It's still based on the size. Okay, if I manage the INWK DC, I prefer use IP. Why? Because I have a few hosts. That's all. I can manage them easily. But for the Facebook, use IP is not an option for them. DNS server is the only option for them because they have a huge, let's say they have a huge line of the virtual machine. Maybe this is not a good example. I'm not sure, but how can I say that? Anyway, just say DNS add a layer between your domain name and your IP, which we know. You may say, add a layer maybe cause more issue. Yes, it's causing a lot of issue. Like this Facebook lost internet for 6 hours or disappear from internet for 6 hours. It's because of DNS. because they have the mapping relationship between domain name and IP. But this is also good management tool because if I have a ESXi server, it's not accurate. I can give, so during our lab, you will see I have two ways to find this one. One way is by use IP, another way is by use domain name, which is you say ESXi01 dot vclass dot local. So the two way is if I'm use a client here, if I put IP, the client will go here and talk to my ESXi. But instead of I say that, I put the ESXi01 dot something, and this will send the first will send to my control center because they have a DNS here, and DNS will say, okay, ESXi01 is something something dot 51. Sorry, 51, and they send the IP address back to my desktop. So from here, this vCenter will use that IP and get access to my ESXi. And so from our lab, you can use both. You can use DNS, or if you don't like it, you cannot. You don't need to have it. You don't have use DNS here. Okay. But in a big
Yes.
company, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I got it, but I just I just don't know why the student desktop should know about the domain name. Why they should get the domain name? They just need to have the DNS IP address to make inquiry for the for searching whatever they want. Even in the DHCP configuration, we did we added two configuration regarding the DNS. The first one was the DNS IP address, and totally makes sense. But there was another configuration that the domain name. We had to add also the domain name. I want to know that
Okay.
domain name, why the host should know about what is the domain name.
Yeah, okay, good. That's where's the lab menu here? So do you remember which part we have this DNS? Okay, anyway, I'm going to talk about this. I know this this guy. Okay, the story behind this is this is the Windows, and this one has a, I think this one has a domain controller here. Okay, so this control center also domain controller. Okay, so all the username password is built inside, like student, admin, whatever, inside this domain controller. So after you see that part is you point where is your domain controller, and you need to join the domain. And your question may be, well, what is the domain? Why I'm joining the domain, right? Okay, so this is not about networking, or this is not about VMware. This is about Windows. Let me check if we can find it. If you get a chance, you can just briefly check what is a domain controller and why we need it. Give you a brief talk. This is out of this VMware, so not VM need this. Is because Windows have this domain controller.
Yeah, I think he was more concerned about the why we need the domain name. So what I believe on the VMware, we need a domain name because the VMware, it has vCenter, which is internally integrated with the LDAP. So when you start adding multiple ESXi servers, so this is where you need to configure the domain name. Without the domain name, the internal authentication system, it won't work between the host and the vCenter. So this is where we need the domain name. And later on, if you need to integrate with external LDAP or with the Active Directory for the centralized authentication management, this is again where you will require a domain name.
Yep, that's right. So first thing, let's talk about the domain name here. What is a domain and why we need a domain? Basic concept, if I have a company and I hire one guy. This guy is doing network administrator job. Means PC, server. So you may say, okay, this guy have a certain level of clearance, so this guy can access certain of this server. If I have 100 server, I have 200 of this PC. I cannot go each of this PC add this guy's username. Let's say this guy's username is A. Okay, I cannot go to each of the server and the PC to add username A, password, blah, blah, to give this guy access. Because when I go through these 300 devices, I will spend a few days. So that's why we have a domain controller. All the PC, all the server will talk to my domain controller, which is Windows Server. What I can do, I can just go here, say user A, and privilege only, I don't know, you can put a number, say I can put level, you can name the level. Let's say, whatever, put a number here, 5. Okay, give a number 5. 5 means you can access certain level of the device and other level of the device you cannot get access. So I just need to add one entry to my domain controller. And this guy can immediately log in to the certain router or devices this guy can configure or check it. Okay, that's why we have a domain controller here. Otherwise, if I don't have it, first few days, I'm going to add this user to all my equipment. And after 1 month, this guy quits the job. What happen? I need to go to all of these devices and remove this guy's name, which is not reasonable, right? So that's why domain controller or LDAP is the option, which will centralize all this username, password authentication to give this guy access to different devices. So same thing here, because we have a very small lab, we don't worry about it, but in a big lab, not big lab, big company, network team may have 100 people and VM team may have few hundred people. You know, you need to give each of these guys different access to different ESXi. You are not going to the local ESXi to put their username password, right? So that's why you say everything you need to point is your domain controller or use LDAP. Okay, you put user A, user B, user C, user D, and you give them access, A, B access this one, C and D access the next one. Okay, so the only big company we use this, smaller company, no, they still use the local database. For our internet working, because we only have few people here, what I can do, I only add my name, Shasa's name, some others name here. I go here, build this, and that's all. Right, simple, easy, reliable. But it's like case by case. Okay, so this is about DC. Back to the DNS, I think I know the example. So when you build your vCenter, some of this case, vCenter said, I'm not accept IP, I only need to FQND, which is full domain name. Okay, they just need a domain name. And another one is, okay, this is a good example I figured out. We have 2 ESXi, but let's say you have lots of ESXi and you have a vCenter here. So when you point this ESXi to the vCenter, or you add this to the vCenter, the most case we use domain name. Okay, we use domain name. It's not a good example, but just say this. Okay. Let's say this is your home. Okay, you have a ISP provide you the internet, which with public IP, but this one is dynamic, right? Means ISP gave you this public IP today, maybe after a few days, they give you another, they swap to another IP. But if you want to run a web server at your home to your friend, you cannot say, okay, today my IP address is A, B, C, D. Please use this one. After 2 days, you send another email to your friend, say, okay, my IP address changed. Please use B, C, D, E. This is not reasonable, right? So that's why you have a domain service here. And this one is a little bit different, which we call the DDS. Okay, DNS is service. D means dynamic. So we have a DDS, which is a dynamic DNS. What's happening is you talk to another company, service provider, which provide the DNS. And today you say, okay, please bound my domain name nwk.com with my IP A, B, C, D. Because you're running some service here, they will collect your public IP and send to this service. And this company will combine this domain name with this IP. And you just let your friend know, please visit nwk.com and you will reach to my web server. So after a few days, your ISP swaps your IP become BCDE. You have a small agent here, will send the update, say, okay, this guy's IP changed to BCDE. So please update your domain, this domain name. So now when your friend visit this nwk.com, your friend get IP address actually is BCDE. Okay. So this is why we use DNS. I believe in a big or huge data center, all the IP address signed out by the DHCP server. I don't care. If this is a physical server one, I don't care what's this guy's IP. I just need to know this guy's domain name, because IP can be dynamically changed. Okay.
Sir, for Linux environment where there is no AD infrastructure,
Yep.
VMware appliance I think is used. So does it have an internal domain server?
No, that's why they have a two concept. This guy is your domain controller, which is Windows, right? And actually, all these Windows server are joined the domain. So when you log in, you see the domain name. So for the vCenter, we have another kind of the domain, but we not say this is a domain. This is a single sign-on domain name. So this one is not the DC domain. It's a little bit different. Okay, so when you have a single sign-on, let's say similar as a DC, and you still have the same database, username, password, username, password built inside SSO. But just different technology, different name. Okay.
Okay, sir.
I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other topic you want to chat?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. It's 3:48. Like only 10 minutes left. Like I said, VMware is interesting thing is because we can use it every day. So actually, you will feel more comfortable when you play with it instead of you play with spanning tree, routing protocol, RIP. Even you learn how to configure it, or SPF, you learn how to configure it. First thing you say, where should I use it? And second one is, I'm not going to do this practice every day. So normally after a few weeks, you'll return all this knowledge to your instructor. The VM good is you can play them every day. You can improve your system. Just try to enjoy it.
Sir,
Mhm.
Sir, could you please, show the exact installer for the VMware client? Like you showed before. Could you please show it again?
Okay, so if you go to the lab PC under this VCP lab folder and under VMware VM setup, and you go auto run, and from the list you can click this vSphere client and you can just install it. And the first one is called vCenter server for Windows. And this is the old way. If you want to install vCenter to the Windows, that's the way we go, which is you spend almost 1 or 2 days to finish the installation.
Sir, just another thing. I haven't received the VCP lab file for some reason. I don't know.
Okay, let me drop this again. Give me a second. You are talking about the entire lab, like a PowerPoint, something like that?
No, sir. I received the PowerPoint and other stuff, but I didn't receive the VCP lab folder, like the one that you just clicked on.
This one? This one is not on your PC. This is a remote desktop, which from your PC to one of our lab PC. And all the software are inside this lab PC, not your PC.
Okay, got you, sir.
Okay, got me? So because you are here, you are not going to install anything on your local PC. What you have VPN, and you have remote desktop, and all the lab is happening here. That's your remote desktop PC, and you will install software here. You will get access from here to here. Okay, but from your local side, you just need to have a VPN and the remote desktop.
Sir, so we just have to install the VPN that
Yes.
you, okay.
And if you are Windows, you already have built-in remote desktop.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, any other question?
Sir, I have a question.
Yep.
We don't need to install the vSphere on the remote desktops. Is it already installed, or do we have to install when we do our labs?
You are talking about vSphere?
Yeah, the question
ESXi?
that, yeah, Fahim just asked about the, the vSphere and the installation. I'm saying, do we have to install it on our remote systems or not?
The setup is like this way. I already set up this physical server, or these two physical server, and I already installed ESXi. So you don't need to install anything on top. Okay, also vCenter are already deployed, so you can just log in and use it. And this is our lab setup. But in the real world, if you have a server, you start from the beginning, you will physically install ESXi by yourself.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, maybe tomorrow I give you a small demo about how to install ESXi inside your workstation, so you can have a view about this yellow page, yellow GUI.
That would be perfect, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other question? Okay, looks like we're okay here. Okay, looks like we don't have any question here. So 3:53, I think that's good for today. It's a long day for everybody. Okay, so enjoy your evening and see you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Okay, have a good evening.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
sir. Have a
evening,
good
sir.
night.
Yeah, good night.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
I guess there's someone who's raised the hands.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Professor, actually, I do have been